We're at a point in the year where typically things get a bit quiet while we all patiently wait for new products to hit the shelves. And we normally see the likes of Computex paving the way for some big announcements from the likes of AMD and NVIDIA. Sadly, that's not happened, and we're still being drip-fed leaks and rumours regarding the upcoming GPUs, but kind of nothing concrete, which has led to consumers waiting for something new. But what if you want something current? Well, as per our usual monthly GPU update, we've been looking high and low to see exactly what's going on in terms of stock and pricing in both the UK and the US. And while last month saw some pretty decent price cuts, well, this month it's taken a little bit of a U-turn. But before we get into that, here's a quick word from this video sponsor. I wish these files would transfer faster. Come on! Whoa, is that the FireCuda 510 NVMe drive with its blistering fast speeds of 3450 megabytes a second read, 3200 megabytes a second write, and capacities of up to 2 terabyte? I can have these files transferred in no time. And if I'm looking for the ultimate performance, I could even get the 4th generation FireCuda 520. I better check the link in the description to find out more details. For those of you who have seen one of these types of videos before, welcome back, and by now you know kind of what they're all about. For those of you who are new, here's a quick rundown. Mining is dead, stock is getting better, and is even at the point where AIBs are actually struggling to shift stock in preparation for the next generation of cards that are due to come out sometime later this year, apparently. Now, normally we'd then see prices drop because of it, but it seems that partners, including retail outlets, are still trying to maximise their profits at the expense of the consumer, though this is likely to change if stock continues to grow. Now, as always, we'll be focusing on the cheapest SKU in each product range, and it's kind of a given that if you're wanting a more exotic card like an Asus Strix, a Gigabyte Extreme, MSI Supreme X, or frankly anything from EVGA, then you should be expecting to pay a slight premium over what we're classed as a kind of reference-based or MSRP-based card, whatever that is. Also, if you appreciate the huge amount of research and work that we put into these videos and want to help support us in everything that we do, then you can help by joining the eTeknix Patreon family. The link for that is down below. With that aside, we've also timestamped this video so you can get to the section of this video that kind of appeals to you if you're in the UK or the US. So yeah, for now, let's start by taking a look at the UK market and NVIDIA, starting with the GT 1030. And this month, the cheapest model is from Palette with a price of $89.99. This is actually the same price it's been for the last 2 months, so it does seem that the 1030 is remaining very consistent in pricing. Now, similar to the 1030, the 1050 Ti is the same price as last month at $169.99, but it's still £30 more expensive than its original MSRP. At this price, there is a bit of choice with an Asus Phoenix and Palette Storm X SKUs, but though the price hasn't changed just yet, it may actually be worth waiting to see if the price comes down in the very near future. The GTX 1660 is also the same price as last month, which is its MSRP of £199, again with a model from Palette, though I would have liked to have seen the pricing a bit lower considering how old that card actually is now. The GTX 1660 Super is again the same price as last month, this time with an MSI Ventus model, but still means it's coming in at £68.99 more expensive than its MSRP. The RTX 2060 has actually gone up in price this month by £10, putting it now £21 over its original MSRP price from a few years ago. Again, due to the age of the card, I'd like to think in the next month or so we could see things move a bit more, but it's still a card that is more than capable of holding its own. There's not much to say about the 2060 Super, as it's also coming in at the same price as last month, and actually the same as the month before, at $399.95, which is a lot of money for kind of last generation's performance. And unless ray tracing is super important to you, there are better cards on the market from the likes of AMD. The RTX 3050 has increased in price by £11 since last month. While this is not the biggest rise in price in comparison to other cards, it does mean that the overall difference to the MSRP has grown by over 21%. The RTX 3060 is £10 cheaper than last month, returning to the same price it had in June at $349.99. There are 3 different cards that share this decreased price with the Gigabyte Eagle, the Palette Dual and the Zotac Twin Edge. While you're kind of spoilt for choice here, they're all still massively over their original launch price of £299. Not only has the price of the 3060 Ti gone up by £30, but the total difference compared to its MSRP is now £111 higher. With such a large price gap compared to its release and no sign of it coming down based on previous months, it might actually be a good time to consider alternatives to a 3060 Ti. The Zotac Twin Edge is the cheapest option for an RTX 3070 at $529.99, and the price for a 3070 has actually gone up from last month, but only by £11. And while that may not be too bad, the increase from its MSRP is now reaching around 30% higher, and that may make you think otherwise. The 3070 Ti has seen a £30 price drop since last month, which makes it the lowest price it has been for several months. This may seem good, but much like the 3060 Ti, the increase from MSRP may make you reconsider, as it's now coming in a whopping 19% higher. It's a very similar story for the 3080 10GB, as the price difference compared to the MSRP is also over £100 more. On top of that, the price is £60 more than last month, but with news floating around, I think we're going to see this potentially drop quite dramatically very, very soon. With Inno3D's iChill model representing the 3080 12GB range, there isn't too much to say other than the price for a 3080 12GB is now £21 higher than last month, which is still much lower than what it was when it launched, but still doesn't offer amazing value for money. While a lot of the previously mentioned cards have either been more expensive than prior months or had an MSRP difference that's just too high to justify a purchase, the next three cards are the exact opposite. Starting off with the KFA2 SG One-Click 3080 Ti at $899.99. Compared to the prices for the 3080 Ti last month, there's been quite a substantial drop of £150, now bringing it 14% below its original MSRP. The 3090 doesn't drop in price as much as the 3080 Ti, but a £100 reduction is not to be taken for granted. The price drop also means that the card is now £300 cheaper than the MSRP, which in all honesty is nice, but that MSRP was always a bit of a joke anyway. Continuing with jokes, and once again with the 3090 Ti, the price drop of £99 compared to last month is absolutely dwarfed by the total MSRP price drop. The difference from MSRP is now a colossal £529 less, but as I've made very clear in the past, that price was, well, stupid from its announcement. Moving on to UK prices for AMD cards, and we're starting off strong with the 6500 XT, specifically the Power Color ITX card. Since last month, the price for a 6500 XT has dropped by £9 and in total is now 16% cheaper than its MSRP. But if I was looking to spend that kind of money, I'd look at a 5600 XT or similar on the used market instead. The next card up, the RX 6600, has seen a bit more of a price drop, decreasing by £41 compared to last month, now putting it £50 cheaper than its MSRP. The 6650 XT is a non-mover and has remained the same as the last 2 months at $379.99. Considering how this is still only 2% below its MSRP and hasn't moved in a few months, I think it's safe to say that it could go down further as we get closer to the next generation of cards launching. The 6700 XT also retains its price from last month, staying 7.4% above its official MSRP. There are 2 different cards that share this price among the 6700 XT series, with the MSI Mech 2X and the Sapphire Pulse, so at least you have a choice, I guess. The 6750 XT is the same price as last month at $529.99, which is a very minimal decrease of £3 from the original MSRP, so nothing really to write home about. The 6800 is reduced by £41 this month from $589.99 to $548.99. Despite this, it still remains more expensive than its MSRP by around £20, so if it was me, I'd probably hold out a little bit longer. The 6800 XT is the same price as last month on both the Gigabyte Gaming OC and the Sapphire Pulse at $649.99, and even with 2 cards to choose from, the price is still around £50 more than its MSRP. So again, just wait a little bit longer because it will come down. The 6900 XT is £60 cheaper than last month, which is already a good start for a high-end card, which now puts it over 33% cheaper than its MSRP. At least something is moving in the right direction. Unfortunately, the 6950 XT does not follow its predecessor. Instead, its price remains the same, which still leaves it slightly over its MSRP. Over to the US now, and the first card we have here is the Gigabyte 1030, which is still around $20 more expensive than its MSRP, which is disappointing to see. And one important thing to mention is that this first example is not sold by Newegg, but rather by a company called Tech Junkie, whoever that may be. For the 1050 Ti, we have a card from Gigabyte at $269.99, which is $28 more expensive than last month and is a whopping 92% more expensive than MSRP. There is a cheaper version of this same card at the same price as last month of $242, but it's open box, so I guess take that into consideration. The GTX 1650 is the same price as last month, which is still 27% higher than MSRP. And once again, there is an alternative, which is $47 cheaper than last month, but again, is open box. If you're willing to sacrifice packaging for money, then this may be a card to consider, but I still feel it's a bit too expensive for what it is. The 1660 is $40 cheaper than last month, and overall is now cheaper than MSRP. So at least it's heading in the right direction, I guess. The 1660 Super is now just under $10 cheaper than its MSRP, which, while the decrease is small, it's appreciated nonetheless. But remember, it's quite an old card now in the grand scheme of things. The 1660 Ti price has fallen by a mere $10 compared to last month, but is still over $50 more expensive than the original MSRP. So if it was me, I'd definitely wait a little longer on that one. Unlike the last two cards, the RTX 2060 has seen a much bigger price drop, making it now $80 cheaper than last month. And while this reduction now sees it 32% cheaper than MSRP, and while that kind of sounds good, for a card as old as it is, it's kind of expected. The RTX 2060 Super is $20 cheaper than last month and is following the trend as now being 14% cheaper than MSRP. I guess there is hope still as things move in the right direction. The RTX 3050 price has gone down this month, but only by a measly $5. This drop barely makes a dent in the overall price as it's still over its original launch price, and in the grand scheme of things, isn't actually that good of a card anyway. The RTX 3060 is $40 cheaper than last month, but it would still need to drop about another $40 or so to match its MSRP, but at least it's going down and not up. The 3060 Ti is the same price as last month, and that still sees it around $70 higher than its MSRP. I guess as a more popular card, it may just have a bit more resistance. The RTX 3070 is $30 more expensive this month with three cars to choose from: the Gigabyte Eagle, the Gigabyte Gaming OC, and the MSI Ventus, though even with this choice, it's still way too expensive over its launch price for me to even entertain. There is a fourth option for an RTX 3070 in the form of another Gigabyte Gaming OC card, which is $10 cheaper than last month, but is still $21 more expensive than MSRP. The most important detail here is that it is a refurbished model, so if you wanted a completely new card, this isn't the right one for you, but could save you a small amount of money. For those looking for a 3070 Ti, then you have a choice between the Gigabyte Gaming OC and the MSI Ventus, which are now both $30 cheaper than last month, yet considering they demand a $51 premium over their MSRP, I'd wait a little bit longer if it was me. Once again, there is an alternative 3070 Ti that is $50 cheaper than last month, and yep, you guessed it, it's open box, but it's still above its MSRP, so I wouldn't be touching it at that price. The RTX 3080 10GB is $20 cheaper than last month, but is still inflated above its MSRP by about $60. And with talk of NVIDIA implementing some big price cuts soon, I'd definitely wait about a week or so. Unfortunately, the RTX 3080 12GB does the opposite of the 10 and actually increases in price by $30 when compared to last month. Again, from the word I'm hearing, just wait a little bit longer. Now, as we move to the higher end NVIDIA cards, starting with the 3080 Ti, we do see a price drop of around $30 compared to last month. Whilst not the largest drop, it's hard to overlook the almost $300 off its MSRP for both EVGA and Gigabyte cards. The RTX 3090 only has one option, but it is $50 cheaper than last month and now $300 cheaper than MSRP, so we're finally getting somewhere at long last. The 3090 Ti is the largest reduction in price, coming in a whopping $150 cheaper than last month. On top of that, when compared to the MSRP, it's actually now at a somewhat reasonable price, considering what NVIDIA were laughingly trying to sell it for originally. Now moving on to AMD prices for the US, with the 6500 XT, which is now $15 more expensive than last month, but it does still remain cheaper than its MSRP by around $15. Though as we've mentioned in some of our other videos, there are better cards on the used market for the same price. From here, all but one of the AMD cards are cheaper in comparison to both last month and their respective MSRPs. We start the savings with the 6600, which is now $20 cheaper than last month and is now coming in around $70 cheaper than MSRP. And with two different models to choose from, with one from ASRock and one from Sapphire. The 6600 XT is also $20 cheaper than last month, much like the 6600, and is now $60 cheaper than MSRP, which is a pretty good deal for such a popular card. The 6650 XT is $10 cheaper than last month and is now sitting $50 cheaper than its MSRP, with a choice between the Power Color Fighter and Sapphire Pulse cards. Now brace yourself because we have the biggest price drop with the 6700 XT. Are you ready? The 6700 XT is a whole $1 cheaper than last month. Yeah, $1 cheaper. At least that further cements its price reduction, coming in at $112 cheaper than MSRP, offering some pretty great value for money, but personally, I would have liked to have seen just a little bit more. The 6750 XT follows the trend, coming in $25 cheaper than last month, but for the slight extra performance you get, I still think the 6700 XT is the better card to choose from when talking about value for money. Unfortunately, we've reached the cards that break the saving train. The 6800 sadly is coming in the same price as last month, which is still $21 more expensive than MSRP. This applies to 3 different cards from ASRock, MSI and Sapphire, but with new cards coming, this could start dropping too. The high-end AMD cards haven't dropped a huge amount since last month, but any price drop is better than nothing, I guess. The 6800 XT is now $50 cheaper than last month and is below its MSRP, albeit by less than $10. While the 6900 XT is $79 cheaper than last month, now putting it just under $300 cheaper than when it first launched. So yeah, not bad overall. Last but not least, the 6950 XT from AMD has dropped down by around $20, which continues its spiral down below MSRP. But I have seen the occasional deal on this crop up from time to time, so keep your eyes peeled because you could probably get this a little bit cheaper. So just like normal, it's not as clear cut to see as we first thought. While the higher end models have seen some nice reductions, the cards that people are actually interested in buying are either going back up slightly or are being stubborn and kind of staying put. I mean, sure, if you were looking to maybe pay over the odds for a 3080 10GB, you can now get a 3080 Ti for the same money. Or you've got the other option where you could save some money and pay less for the 10GB. So what I'm trying to say is I guess it's easy to say that you now have choices with saving money or getting more for your money. But that's not exactly an amazing breakthrough now, is it? Especially with rumours floating around about NVIDIA ramping up 3080 production again and a kind of price war impending from the big 3 brands on the market on CPUs and GPUs. Now, as I mentioned at the start, you'd like to think, if history is anything to go by, that stock will start to get cleared out in preparation of the next generation of cards coming to market. But we're not quite at that point yet, which likely indicates that the next generation of cards maybe aren't as close as we first kind of thought that they were going to be. I'm now hearing the likes of the 40 series may only see 1 SKU being released this year, and the rest not actually coming until 2023. Which, if that's the case, you're probably better off waiting until the end of the year when we're probably going to be seeing prices getting, I don't know, a little bit more aggressive. A lot of it depends on NVIDIA and AMD, and a lot of it depends on the retailers and the disties, because they bought the products that they have right now on the shelves at a certain price, and they want to sell them at a certain price. And if they're forced to take a hit, yeah, they're not going to be happy. But at last, it kind of seems that people are voting with their wallets. And in all honesty, I think it's the wake-up call that these brands needed to show that they can't continue having consumers over on pricing. For now, I think though things were heading in the right direction over the last couple of months, they've now reached a bit of a block. And they will get through it if people continue to hold back on buying a current generation GPU, and we will see even lower prices than what we're seeing right now. It's just a matter of time. And as we hear more about the next gen of cards finally arriving, we'll suddenly kind of see a big change in tactics from the brands and their retail partners. Yeah, sorry guys, I was hoping to have, I don't know, a little bit more of kind of cheery information for you, but it is what it is. So let me know what you're actually planning to do in the comments section below. Are you going to buy now? Are you going to wait? Or are you even going to wait for the next gen? Or wait for the next gen and then buy the current gen when in theory it should be cheaper? I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, a like and a sub to the channel would be fan-dabby-dozy. And as mentioned, if you love what we do and appreciate the huge amount of research and effort that goes into these videos, then please consider supporting us over on Patreon, where you'll get access to exclusive behind-the-scenes content, bi-weekly game nights, and a super secret special area on our Discord. The link for that is all down below, along with our Discord, which is also linked there as well. And with that, I'll see you in the next one. See you later, guys. Bye-bye.